Hello, my name is Laura, and in this video, I thought it would be fun to take you guys along as I try to get a few things done over the next couple of days. And the main thing that I want to get done is to make significant progress on my Solene cardigan by Moreca Knit. I kind of have an arbitrary goal in mind of having this cardigan done to wear to my company Christmas party, which is in like a week and a half. And I still have to, leave time for this to block. So I don't know if that'll happen, but I still would love to try to make a lot of progress on that this weekend. And also I need to write a letter to my best friend, and I am like 80% of the way through the book that I'm reading. And I would love to see if I can finish that this weekend and then maybe tell you guys about it. And I might still tell you about it even if I don't finish it because it's just that good. So anyway, kind of a chill but yet action-packed next couple of days. And yeah, like I said, I just thought it'd be fun to take you along for that. I really enjoy filming and editing these types of videos, and so I think I'm gonna try to do these more often. Plus, I'll probably like sprinkle in a few other like arts and craftsy things because I have a lot of interests when it comes to the art world, and I think that these types of videos would be a good way to stay in touch with those and, I don't know, just kind of do like a fun little craft that's not knitting every now and then, because knitting is so easy to pick up and do every single day. Like there's no paint that needs to dry, like there's no brushes you need to wash, like it's just so easy. So that's why it has become my primary hobby. But I would love to stay in touch with these other skills and crafts that I've kind of picked up throughout the years. So I'll probably sprinkle in a few of those like in these types of videos. So anyway, it's just really fun. Getting into it, I'll start by just saying what I'm wearing. This is my recently finished Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit, and I knit this using Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the color Pearl Gray. And I love it. Though as I was putting it on this morning, I realized that the neckline is already starting to kind of stretch a little bit, so I'll probably need to put some elastic in this at some point. That's not a this weekend thing, but at some point I'll put some elastic in there. But yeah, this is what I'm wearing today. And getting into my Solene cardigan, this is the progress I have made so far. Whoop, see if you can see that. So I have finished the body, and I just did an Italian bind off. I didn't do the tubular bind off that the pattern calls for because I just didn't feel like it. So anyway, I've got the body done, and I have picked up for the first sleeve, and I have completed the sleeve cap, which was 100% short rows, lots of short rows, and now I am knitting in the round doing decreases down the sleeve. So today, if I could get an entire sleeve done, I think that would be huge, because for me, the second sleeve always goes faster than the first just because you know exactly what you want it to be. So I could get the second sleeve done, and then that just leaves the body, like the band, like the double knitted button band, but it's not gonna have any buttons on it. Who knows how long that'll take. Can it get done before the party? I don't know, but today I'm gonna try to finish a sleeve. One thing I have already run into with this cardigan though, and I think it's with the yarn, I'm knitting this using Drops Air in the color 29, which is mauve. I think this yarn, for me, knits different flat than it does in the round. I usually have the exact same gauge no matter what I do, and it's just generally tighter than most designers' gauges. But I noticed that as soon as I started knitting in the round on these sleeves, I don't know if you can see that, about right here, my gauge got tighter. I hope you can see that because I can't see the camera. My gauge just got immediately tighter, and the stitches weren't as fluffy, and it was kind of looking weird. So I switched to magic loop. I was knitting this on like a circular needle because that's what I used for the short rows, but that was knitting flat. And so I switched to magic loop to see if that would make a difference. So far it has not. So I am just trying to knit as loosely as I can and then just praying that it will block out and there's not like an obvious line on each arm where I switched to circular knitting. Anyway, it's fine, we'll see. I'm just gonna keep knitting because I don't know what else to do. Like I'm not gonna knit the sleeves flat. That would be silly. So anyway, whatever. it'll probably block out. This is a pretty fluffy yarn. It's a blown yarn, so maybe it'll poof up and kind of cover that up. We're gonna hope. We're gonna hope for that. One other thing that I wanted to show you on this is how I keep track of my rows. So for these sleeves and for most sweaters, there are like gradual decreases throughout the sleeves. And instead of having a row counter or just counting my stitches on the actual knitting, I create this, which is essentially where I like move the clothespin depending on what row I'm on. And then when I get to the decrease, that's when I decrease, and I write down like the way to decrease. Oh, and I forgot to fill in. I usually write down the stitch count that I'm trying to get to. I forgot to write that in for this. But yeah, this is how I keep track of my rows. Very simple. And I probably should hang on to these because it's just a piece of paper, because most sweaters like decrease on this, not the same interval, but they're very similar. And so like this is to decrease every 10 rounds, and I guarantee that I will knit a sweater in the near future that has sleeve decreases on every 10th round. So I probably should just hang on to this. But anyway, this is how I do it. How do you keep track of when you need to decrease on sleeves? I find that having a visual representation and something to physically like make sure I remember to move it every single round, like that helps keep me on track. So anyway, that's low budget, very easy way to keep track of rows. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I am gonna start knitting. I get kind of easily distracted while I'm knitting, so what I think I'm gonna do is to start at least set myself a timer for either like 30 minutes or an hour. Like, I don't wanna like abuse my hands, but I think I'm gonna set a timer and then kind of make it a little challenge to see how much knitting I can get done in that time. And then we'll go from there. I'll probably take a break after that. I've got plans to do some baking as well, so maybe I'll film a little bit of that. So yeah, I am probably gonna find a little podcast to put on. I am listening to 2 different audiobooks right now, but because I'm in the middle of actually reading my main book, I don't want to like get the stories mixed up in my head. Like I want to stay mentally in the book that I'm reading right now. So I'm probably just going to watch some knitting podcasts while I work on this. So that's that. I'm gonna start knitting. Okay, so it is about 2.5 hours and 4 knitting podcasts later, and this is how much I have done on the sleeve. I added a little stitch marker to show where I started, and that's all I have done so far. And it doesn't look like a lot of knitting for 2.5 hours, but I am halfway through the decreases on the sleeve, so I feel like that's something. And I took off my sweater so that I could try this on and see how it looks so far. I have not tried this on since starting the sleeve, since there wasn't really much to see. But now I feel like we're at a good enough point that I can kind of see where halfway through the decreases got me. So I'm gonna throw this on really quick. Okay, yeah, this is honestly a great point to be at for halfway through the sleeve. Like, I might have to add a little bit of length after the decreases because I usually have longer arms than what patterns call for, but like that's not a big deal. So yeah, I feel like this looks really good so far. It'll kind of sit in or sit a little higher once I have the band on, but I really love where the shoulder, how the shoulder's fitting. I don't know, that feels really nice. So this is so sweet. I love it so far. Putting the sleeve on really, I'm gonna fall. Putting the sleeve on like really is pulling it together. So yeah. So even though as I'm decreasing, the rounds should be going faster and faster, I feel myself slowing down a little bit. So I think it's time to take a little lunch break, and then I am gonna do some baking. I have been craving pumpkin bread for like 2 months now. And normally whenever my cousins come for every New Year, my aunt will bake pumpkin bread and bring it. But I just don't think I can wait that long. So I finally broke and I asked for the recipe. So I'm going to go attempt that myself, even though I have never really baked before, you know, other than like a cake out of the box. So I'm gonna go try that and see if it turns out nice. And I think this will be a nice break for my hands for a while. And then hopefully I can finish this sleeve by the end of the day. There's like no ribbing on this, like at the bottom of the cardigan. I just did 8 rows of knitting or ribbing, and I think the sleeve is going to be, if not the same, like even double that is basically no ribbing, and that should go really fast too. So I think this can be done, but I am, in the meantime, very excited to go try to bake some pumpkin bread. If you actually know how to bake, this is probably a good time to avert your eyes. I genuinely had no idea if I was doing any of this correctly because I usually cook with the just add seasoning until it tastes good method, and at a very minimum, I know you cannot do that with baking. I was so new to this that I forgot I was right-handed for a minute there, so really, it's a miracle that this turned out delicious. And of course, 100% of the credit goes to my lovely aunt and her recipe. Okay, so last night I did end up finishing one sleeve on my Solene cardigan, but after I bound off, I realized that the sleeve is a little too short, and it feels like borderline short enough that I don't think it'll block out. So I'm probably going to have to unpick the bind off and lengthen that a little bit, which that's entirely my fault. I literally, as I was knitting the ribbing, I was thinking, should I try this on? Like, I should probably try this on because it feels a little short, but then I just kept going. So entirely my fault, but it's fine. I'll just unpick that at some point here soon and knit that a little bit longer. But for today, I am going to set aside my knitting, and I have a couple of other things that I want to get done today. And the first of which is I want to go to a coffee shop and write a letter. So my best friend and I have been writing letters to each other recently, and this is something that we started back in college, and then we kind of stopped for a couple years after graduating, and now we're picking it back up, and it's honestly a lot of fun. So I would love to go to a coffee shop and write my letter because it's just nice to get out of the house, you know, like have a little change of scenery to do that. And yeah, so I want to go do that. And then I got some bookshelves in. And I am so excited to put them together and put books on the shelves. So I think I'm going to spend the rest of the day doing that. And it's going to be really fun. So anyway, that is what I'm up to today. And yeah, also I am wearing my porcelain sweater by Knit, or, you know, Len Home Semso, also known as Knit. And I knit this in Sanderson Double Sunday in the colors Putty and Electric Blue. So I love it. I am super happy that it is sweater weather and I finally get to wear these. So yeah, so I think I'm going to kick off my day by going to a little coffee shop. If you're a knitter and you aren't already, I have a feeling that you would absolutely love writing letters. For me personally, there is something so grounding about taking the time to slowly handwrite each and every word that I want to say. For my friend and I, these letters can be absolutely anything from life updates to philosophical questions with usually little continuity between letters. The important part is that we are thinking of each other and using this as a way to stay more connected. If you have a pen pal worthy loved one, I really recommend this. Okay, so this is the current shelf situation, and I made this shelf almost 2 years ago at this point because I made it the week before I started my job, so I had a lot of time on my hands and conveniently a lot of 2x4s, so that is what I built. My main objective with this shelf was to store art supplies and to make it in the exact shape of the stuff that I currently have. So like here, I made this to be the exact almost dimensions of this gorgeous wooden little shelf that my sister got me. Got my flutes down there, some books, and then over here is art supplies, which has gradually shifted into just yarn, but that's kind of the purpose. Also, the only outlet in the entire room is on this wall, and so I had to make this shelf with no back so that I could still access the outlet. And with my new bookshelves, I am just gonna have to figure that out when I get there. So, anyway, this has been the shelf so far. It's honestly been amazing, but I'm ready to upgrade. So, I'm gonna take this guy and put it on the opposite wall on that side of the room and still use it for art supplies mostly. And my new bookshelves that I'm gonna build are going to be for mainly books and yarn. That is what all of this is over here. I didn't clean up any of this, like this is just what it looks like normally. So the goal is to use the new shelves for books and yarn so that some of this disorganization can go away, and I'll have more space for art supplies. It'll like free up some of the yarn, some of the current yarn compartments for art supplies. So that is the goal. And for the new bookshelves, these are the standard famous IKEA Billy bookshelves, and I essentially got this one to go in the center, which is going to be a little longer, and then one to go on either side that is the traditional cube shelf. I will probably slowly expand and add bookshelves over the year, but I thought 3 was a good start. And I also just know, this is going to take a lot longer to put together than I would like it to. So, to save both of us the pain of having to watch that happen, we're going to do a little editing magic. And I would like to present to you my new bookshelves. Honestly, these were pretty easy to put together. I think it took me like maybe an hour, maybe hour and a half. And a good majority of that was me just trying to open the boxes. So, anyway, shout out to IKEA for making that super easy. I think it also helped that I got the shorter shelves. I think if I had to do like the full height ones, that would have been a bit more of a process. I might have needed help, but I did get the 40-something inch shelves because the ceiling in this room is slanted, so it ends like right, I think you can see that. It ends like right here, so the full height would have been like double this and it wouldn't have fit in the space. So, I'm super happy with how these turned out. And yeah, I think I am going to start putting stuff on here. Also, with the outlet situation, I ended up just putting the bookshelves right next to the outlet. And because the outlet is smack in the middle of one of the shelves, which obviously I could move this up or down, but I wanted it perfectly like a third. So that's me. That's one of my things. But anyway, for now, it's fine. I think if I eventually expand and add more little cube shelves on the sides, I'm going to have to address that. But for now, the issue is resolved. Also, I'm grateful that I only ordered the 3 shelves because I was originally thinking that I wanted 2 cube shapes per side. And now that I'm looking at this, I don't even know if I have enough stuff to fill these shelves. So I think this is a great start. And eventually, as I collect more books and more yarn, I'll need more shelves. But for now, this is good. So I am going to put some books on here and maybe mostly yarn. Okay, so this is the shelf for now. Like I said, I didn't realize I don't have enough stuff to fill up this space, but it's okay for now. So, a mini grand tour. What I have over here is some fiber spates and some Knitting for Olive yarn. Both of these are garments that I'm actively working on, so this will probably be my work in progress shelf, since I'll go through this pretty quickly. And then here I have my Harry Potter set. So funny story about this, I got this, I don't know, high school sometime, and I let my sister read it, and I am so particular about my books, and she got, I think, the fourth or the fifth one wet. She had it in her backpack at school and her water bottle spilled. And so the pages were ever so slightly wrinkly and I made her get me a new copy. So either the fourth or fifth one is not the original book that came in this set and my sister has the ruined copy. So anyway, I care about my books. So that's Harry Potter. And then here I have, I guess will be my kind of inspiring nonfiction self-help section. I have a book that I recently got on screenwriting, which I thought would just be cool for writing in general. And then also I have my Bonnie Wright Go Gently book, which has some cool recipes and stuff like that. So this needs some work. I need to get some filler stuff to kind of fill this empty space for now, but it's fine. Here I have my Keeper of the Lost Cities series so far. So this is one of those series that I started in 2012 when I was 12 years old with the very first book. I got it as a gift from my best friend and we really loved the first book, but we didn't realize that the series was incomplete. So every Christmas after that, we have gotten the next book in the series, and so this is a shared set between the two of us. But I don't even know what book is out right now, because right now we have the 9th book and we kind of stopped there for now because I think she's still writing. And so I have only read up until book 4 or 5 because I was just so impatient with having to reread the entire series by the time the next book came out. So we've both decided to just kind of chill on this for now. And we've also steadily outgrown this, which is kind of a shame when it takes, over 10 years to write a series. But C.S. Lewis said, we will be old enough to revisit these sometime in the future. So anyway, that's this set. Up here, I have some more work in progress yarn. And then also, I've kind of pulled together some of my favorite books. So we've got The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, Book Thief, Narnia, and then a couple of other miscellaneous standalone books. Well, this one's not standalone, but anyway, these are kind of my favorites that I have physical copies of. But I am going to be a brat and go ahead and say that I asked for a lot of Brandon Sanderson books for Christmas. So
This will probably become the Brandon Sanderson shelf for now. Yeah. Here I have my classics. My sister, the same sister who ruined the copy of my Harry Potter book, got me this gorgeous shelf and bookends, and then she's been getting me a classic almost every Christmas for a while. So that's what this is. Down here I have my to be read series. My best friend got me the Broken Earth trilogy probably 3 years ago at this point. I still haven't read it. So that's on the to be read list. I recently got the Mythmakers book, which is about the friendship between C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. It's like a comic book kind of thing. So it looked like a fun, cute read. So I'll probably pick that up casually, just whenever. On the next shelf up, I have some Gepard Woolia. This is like one of the only sweater quantities of yarn that I own. So I thought it'd be fun to fully display it here, and it fit perfectly in the space. So that's kind of awesome. And then I have all my journals. Here is my knitting journal. You can see like the little yarn hanging out. Then my Harry Potter ones. A plant that I accidentally ran over with the lawnmower when I left it outside to get some sunlight, and then some dried flowers from my wedding. So this is it for now. It feels a little sparse, but I'll fill it in eventually. I have more books that I could have put over here, but I really want this to be like, I don't know, a reflection, like a refined reflection of my collection. So this is it for now. This is super inspiring and makes me want to read more. And I actually just finished The Way of Kings last night. So I think I'm going to end this little vlog by telling you my thoughts on that.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to do in this little vlog is talk about The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which I just finished. So, first of all, this is the book. This is what it looks like. And if you are on Book Talk or BookTube or just on the internet, this series has been everywhere because the 5th book in the series is coming out soon, and it honestly might be out by the time I get this video published. So this series has been everywhere lately, and I actually started reading this, I want to say like back in August or something, and it's taking me that long to finish it. But that's because I would like read a few chapters and then set it down for a couple weeks and then read a few chapters. Knitting has been so bad for my reading habits. Like, let's just be real, that is the culprit. Knitting is the only reason I have not been reading as much. But anyway, I did finally finish it, and actually I have been reading it on my Kindle because, well, first of all, I got it on my Kindle, and then it had like some illustrations in there, and it was like really hard to see on the Kindle, so I was enjoying the book enough at that point that I was like, let me go ahead and just buy the physical copy. I know I'm gonna want a physical copy to keep, and so anytime a picture came up, I've been using this to look at those, but I've been actually reading on my Kindle because I like to read kind of like a shrimp sitting on my living room chair, like basically upside down, and like this has a little handle on the back, so I can just like hold it like this and read with really bad posture. So anyway, that's how I've been reading it, and this guy is a beast. So to read the actual physical book, I would probably have to have like insanely good posture, like sitting at my kitchen table or something, and I just didn't want to do that. But anyway, this book was amazing, and I would say, okay, yes, it lives up to the hype, but I might have overhyped it a little bit. But before I get into that, I will kind of start with the synopsis in case you are unfamiliar with The Way of Kings. So The Way of Kings is in the Cosmere, which is this universe that Brandon Sanderson has created. There are several like series and standalone books within the Cosmere, but The Way of Kings is its own standalone, or yeah, The Way of Kings kind of starts its own standalone series in there. And the story, from my perspective, essentially follows 3 main storylines, and then it also like sprinkles in a few like extra storylines along the way that are going to be important in future books. I'm assuming. I have not read past this yet, but the main storyline that we follow is Kaladin, and he is essentially a surgeon who ended up going into the military and has just faced so many woes since that happened, and follows his storyline of like going from like having this like peachy keen picture of the world to like being really beaten down to then like maybe coming out at the end of like, oh, maybe it's not that bad, you know? And so follows his storyline on that. And then the second storyline follows Shalon, which I think I'm saying correctly. It's like one of those things, like this entire book is just like you read it and you hope that you're saying it correctly. But Shalon is a young woman who has set out to become the apprentice, essentially, to this really well-known, like, scholar, like, intellect kind of researcher woman. And Shalon, like, has her own ulterior motives for doing that. But then it follows her story of, like, you know, this like, scholarship thing, like, it's kind of cool. I kind of like this. And she feels, like, the emotional turmoil of, like, oh, do I follow through with like my original intent of why I sought out this woman to study with her? Or do I kind of like this new life that I've created and that kind of stuff? And it's way more complex than that, but that's part of it. And then the last main storyline that we follow is Dalinar, which he's like the kind of like a step below the prince or like the king in this world. He's considered a prince, a high prince, and follows his storyline of like wanting to be morally correct in this world that he lives in, but literally no one else like is willing to follow those morals. And the book that he, you know, spoiler alert, the book that he really wants everyone to get on board with is called The Way of Kings. And it just follows his struggle of trying to be morally superior in this world that does not reward that. And that's like the basic premise. But then on top of that, there is this insanely amazing magical system. And I don't know if I'm the one to explain that. So honestly, this book so far has been one of those reads where I have been casually reading through. And so I haven't quite grasped everything, but I also know that this is going to be a series that I revisit later on. So I think what I'm going to do is read the entire thing and then like a year or two later, go back and reread, and I'm gonna catch so much more the second time around. So sorry if I'm not doing the best job of explaining it from here, from this point in time. But just know it's really, really amazing. The magical system is super cool. And yeah, like, and the story is amazing. Like I feel like I mentioned this last time, but the story like shifts perspectives every other chapter or so. And I would find myself getting really into the perspective that I'm in. And then when I flip the page to the next chapter, it switches perspectives and I'm disappointed. I'm like, oh God, I have to like sit through this. Like I want to get back to the storyline I was just at. But then I'm just as quickly into that new storyline and then get mad when I have to switch back to the perspective that I was originally excited about. So it's just so good. The writing just pulls you in. You're not even though like there's some magical like jargon in there and you're having to like get into the world, I never found it to like drag me down. I just very casually just kind of read through it, kind of took it at face value, and it just had me hooked the whole time. Like I never found myself bored while reading this, even though I would say like 90% of the book, like stuff happens, but nothing like really happens, you know, like the main thing happens at the very end. But even so, like I never found myself being bored. It's just so well written, and I don't know, I just really appreciate that. Like I really appreciate a really well written book that you don't even notice that you're reading. It's just that good. But on that note, kind of on like the things all happening at the very end, I think I might have accidentally overhyped this in my mind, because whenever it came time for like the big thing that happened at the end, it was a little underwhelming, but still really good. But I think that was just my fault for overhyping it. But I can tell that the series, like this book is a setup for just so much that's going to happen. Like I already know this is going to be a fantastic series. Like everyone loves it. I'm going to love it. So I can tell that that was the main purpose of this book, is to kind of set up the main storyline, or like the future kind of overarching bigger world conflict. So the story did wrap up really nicely within the context of, I don't know, the settings we wanted to stay in and like the scale we wanted to stay in for the first book. But so I think that was my fault for being like overhyping it just a little bit. But still, it was amazing. I am so excited to keep reading. And yeah, I think it's gonna be amazing. Overall, this is an amazing book and I really, really recommend it if you are into fantasy. And if you're not into fantasy or you're maybe like just getting into it, I think it's still a great book. But something that might be more accessible by the same author is the Mistborn trilogy, and Brandon Sanderson himself recommends this as a great starting point into the Cosmere. And this was actually my first series that I read, or actually listened to these on an audiobook by Brandon Sanderson, and they were fantastic. And I would say it has a slightly more accessible magic system where certain people in this world can basically eat metal, and a different type of metal gives you a different ability. So honestly, such an insane, super cool, original concept. It's one of those things that you're like, wow, that's so good. How did I not think of that? Or like, how did nobody else think of this before now? So an insanely great concept, an amazing trilogy. I cried at the end. I loved it. So anyway, that one I would think is a little more, like slightly more accessible if you're just getting into fantasy, but this is still a great book. So that is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. 5 stars for me, honestly. This was amazing. So there's that. Okay, that is everything that I have for this vlog. And honestly, this was so much fun to film. And I hope it is just as much fun to watch. So I think I'm gonna do a few more of these and see if this is something that I like doing on a regular basis. And if you enjoy watching these, please let me know. I think it's just kind of fun to see what else I get up to other than knitting. And like I said at the beginning, this is just, I think, also a good way for me to stay in touch with my other hobbies, as knitting can kind of take over all of my time. So I think this is also fun to kind of remind myself that I like other things too. And it's okay to not knit every single day and spend my time doing something else. So if you needed to hear that too, then there you go. But anyway, that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.